intended for people that are new to 3D and don't have an understanding of what UVs are and how they work. And so this is going to be a pretty in-depth description about it. If you already have an understanding of UVs, this is going to be pretty boring material and pretty rudimentary, but I wanted to build this example and take you through this example of actually modeling this t-shirt out, setting up the UVs for it, pushing it into ZBrush, just building a real quick texture, pulling that into Maya, and then I explained for maybe people that are a little bit more advanced how we could transfer this split up version from ZBrush and then make an animation from that, so you can see that we can actually blend from this version of the t-shirt and lay it out flat, and you can see how the textures kind of lay out on this. So this is going to be, like I said, a pretty deep dive into the UVs. It's not going to be super complex, but the goal is to have anybody that doesn't really know anything about UVs to walk away and have an understanding of how UVs work. So let's go ahead and get started with this project. And the first thing that we'll take a look at is how we can use Maya and model out the shape for our t-shirt so we can start having a shape that we can build our UVs with. We're going to make a simple t-shirt inside of Maya and set up some UVs for it. So let's go ahead and make sure in the modeling tool set, we'll go create polygon primitives and we'll do a cube. Let's do an option box like this. I'll do 100 by 100 by 100 divisions. I will do 4 by 4 by 4, and I'll check that out and see what that looks like. I think what I want on the sides, though, you can interactively change the amount for the depth. I'll just do something like, actually I'll do this off to the sides, and I'm going to scale this in like so, and maybe this up here like this, and push it up just like this. I'll get rid of the bottom, so I'll select these faces, hold down Control, deselect, get rid of that. Accidentally got one too many there. Okay, I'm going to get rid of the neck hole like this, and I'm going to extrude these out. I want symmetry turned on. I'll double click on this, so I'll turn on symmetry, and I'll just put this on world. Okay, let's do this. Hold down shift and extrude it, and I can rotate it, tap E for this, and then pull this down just like this, and maybe I'll scale it down this direction. Hit delete. If I do Control Shift X, I can pull up the multi-cut tool, hold down Control. If I hold down Shift, I can snap right into the center of that, and now I'll do a center cut here. So I'm holding down Control and then just Shift, and I can snap that to 50-degree increments like that. And if I tap 3, we'll do the smooth mesh preview version of that. I'll hit F9, bring this down just a little bit, scale it up ever so slightly. And what I think I'll do is take these faces, hit F11. I can do the soft mod tool, tap B, and then hold down B, and then click and drag left or right to interactively change that. And I'll try to round this out just a little bit, and I'll do the same thing with the back, just like this. F10, just kind of like this, and then I'll tap F9, pull my verts in, pull this down a little bit, pull this down just a little bit, pull that down, move these over ever so slightly like that. And if I want to continue this, I can just take these verts, move them down ever so slightly. And if I want to start to build rounding on this, I can take these verts, push them in. If I tap B, I can get the smooth mesh or the soft mod thing to turn off. So let's pull these down, pull that in, pull this out just a little bit, push this in, So you can see I'm just, again, trying to round out the forms just a little bit. Okay, and now I'm going to add some geo around here and here, so like the armpits. So if I drag from here to here like this, I know I'm going to want to collapse those in just a second, so I'm just going to make basically another loop going around, and I'm trying to get the about roughly the same distance going around for that. And when I snap up to that, I'll just hit enter for that, just like this. And then if I tap Q, I can select this vert and this vert, and I can shift right click, say merge vertices to center like this, and then maybe I have to move that down a little bit, pull that out. I can hold down shift and add that vert, and I can tap G for my last command, because that's the last thing that we did as far as like a tool command. If I hold down control shift X, we can do the multi-cut tool, hold down control, just add a loop like there, add maybe another loop here, add another loop along the bottom, and I'm going to do the same thing around this part of the t-shirt like this. Hit enter. I'm going to go back to the back side. So I like to select from this edge and drag across to hit that vert to make sure it snaps up to it. Hit enter like that. I'll tap Q, select these two verts again, shift, right click, merge vertices to center. Same thing for this one. And in screen space, I'm just moving it with this middle thing here, like that. Push this like this, then tap 3 and see what we've got. So I think that's looking pretty decent like that for a t-shirt. So I think that's a pretty good example right there. And I could do this where I could add one more loop here like this, add one more loop here like this, hit F10, select all these edges, just pull that down just a little bit. So yeah, I think I'll do this. I'll basically add the illusion that there's some thickness to this, like that. Okay, and then I'll do this. Just there like that, I think be pretty good. We could do this, we can bevel this, add one more segment going through it like this, and then scale this in just a little bit. Get that as a seam. Okay, I think that's making sense. Now if we did the same thing for this, I'm going to have the split going down here, and I think t-shirts, yeah, they have a seam going right there. Oops, I'm going to hold down control and deselect this. So I'm going to build a bevel for that. Take the fraction and pull that up just a little bit. I'll move this. Down like that. And then for this, I can pull this in and move it up just a little. So now we've got some things that look like some seams right there. And I could probably take this and this and this. to it. I think I'm gonna keep that. And still pull that down. Delete the history on that. Okay, I think we're pretty good. I want to do this. Just like that. Okay. I think that's good enough for that. Okay. Alright, so that's a quick way to model a t-shirt. So the reason I chose a t-shirt for this example is that I think it works pretty well. Everybody has a t-shirt and has worn one at one point, and if you were able to take a look at your seams on your t-shirt and you're able to split it apart, you know that you could take that t-shirt and lay it down on the floor and lay it out flat. And you know there's a front part to your t-shirt, a back, and you've got your sleeves that you have put on there, and maybe the sleeves are all maybe a little bit different, but for the most part I think the seam should be underneath here. So I think that's a good way of thinking about how to take a 3D object and lay it down flat and be able to put textures or decals on that and have that be laid out flat. Okay, so I'm going to open up the UV editor window and go to UV like this, and this might be pulled out here like that, and you can just dock this right into that area like that. You can see the UVs that were put on here were starting off from a box, so we do have some UVs, but they need to be fixed up. The next thing I like to do is do a planar map. So if I go to UV and do a planar, I can do the option box, and then I'll just do a planar map from the Z axis. So down here you can see this is Z pushing in this direction, and then this is X in this direction, and then Y here. So you can choose the direction that you want to project this from. You could do camera, and this might make a little bit more sense. So if I hit camera, you can see based off of wherever we're looking, it'll do a projection on that, and it'll just project that texture straight through and all the way through the back. So that can actually get you some UVs and get you going, but you know, if we put the word or the decal on the front of this, it would project on the front and then would just be like pushing straight through the back of this thing. So that's not going to be too good. So we'll do a Z just like this, and I've got this keep image width and height ratio on there, and that'll keep it in a square aspect ratio just like that. And the next thing I'm going to do is use what they've got is called a UV 3D cut and sew UV tool. Okay, and so I'm going to right click on here and go to cut UVs. I am on edges for this thing, so if I hit F8 and got out of the tool actually, and I just click this and go right click, say edge, and then go back into that tool, you want to make sure you're in the edge mode for this. So if I just double click on that, that's going to split these things apart, and you can see it's a thicker line like this, and if I hold down control and double click, it'll sew it back up. So I'm going to cut all along here through this part, and I have symmetry on, so it should cut through there. I'm going to double click on through here, so it's going to cut that. It's going to cut here on the bottom like this, and then I need to cut across from here, so it's going to click here, 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 here like this. And if we split this thing apart, what we should be able to do at this point, I'll deselect off this, just put it on the picker tool, and I'll right click and say object mode. I can delete history, Alt Shift D for that, and that deleted the history. Now the next thing I'm going to do is just right click on here and say UV, and I can double click, and if we split these apart as shells, I can tap W for the move tool, and this is putting in everything in the 0 to 1 space. I'm going to move it off. So here's the front, Here's our arms, and here's our back. Okay, so now we need to let Maya unfold this and lay these parts out flat. So we can select this. You can see these are actually the back part of it. And if we put on this color display, anything that's in red is got UVs that are flipped backwards. So we can, there are some tools under transform, and you can go under tools, and you could flip these things within there right here like that. That's one way you could do it. But I'm going to use the unfold tool. So I'm going to close that back up. I'm going to go to unfold, and I'm just going to click the unfold. And Maya tries to lay this thing out, and it tries to, I'll just put it on the rotate tool real quick, to rotate this up like this. It tries to take a look at the polygons, and it tries to lay it out the best that it can, and get a, if we put a grid pattern on here, you can see how it makes nice and even squares on there for the texture to be laid out like that. So we can grab this part, and I'll unfold that. I'll grab this arm, unfold that, and it actually did both because I have symmetry turned on. So I might want to, at this point, just take symmetry, just double click on the move tool, and turn that off real quick like that. Okay. I am going to take a look at the UVs on here, and any part that looks like it's overlapping like this, I can manually take this and then maybe drag this in like this a little bit. So you can manually go back and fix maybe some stuff that went on with that, but maybe take a look at that. I do have the smooth mesh preview version on, and you could tap 1 for that to just to see the base cage, or tap 3 to see the smooth mesh preview version of it. So I think that looks pretty good. Now if I tap 3 again, let's make sure, yeah, it's in this mode that it's causing some issues. So I don't necessarily need that texture on anymore. I could take a look at that, and that might make it a little bit easier for me to see some of this stuff. So let's do that. I think I'll do this for the UVs there. Okay, and then I'll fix these up. I'm getting really close here. And if I was being really meticulous about this, I would probably want to have my UVs mirrored across on both sides and have them exactly the same. That's a little bit of a process to do that. They do have some tools in here for mirroring and working with that. But that's getting a little out of the scope for this. So the next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to tell it to lay this all out in the 0 to 1 space. So I'm going to select all this. And what I like to do for this is under, let's see, under Modify, Layout, and then Option Box. These are the settings that I would use for that. Preserve 3D ratios, and then try to put it into 1024 area, and shell padding and all that. So once you've got these settings set up for this, you can just go to Arrange and Layout, and just click Layout, and it'll put all the pieces in there for you and try to scale it to make sure it all fits in the 0 to 1 space. Now you might want to do this, and after it's done, just I like that it scales everything and it preserves the 3D ratios, so it looks in the world and it tries to scale all these pieces to where if we put the checkered texture on there, it keeps all these squares nice and even, so that makes it nice and predictable for us to texture with. Now this might give you a lot of dead space in your texture, but like with this layout, this is about as big as we can go with things, because I can take this part and I can move this up and I can move this up, and you can see we're all in the 0 to 1 space, and that's good. But I can't really fill up the space anymore. I can take all the UVs now, and I can tap R for the scale tool, and I can move these, but you can see I'm getting really close to the edge there, so that's about as far as I can push this. So I've optimized this. I could move this up. If we had another part or something like that, we could maybe put and use some of this UV space and try to utilize it. But as far as this goes, I think this is about as good as it's gonna get on here. So I'll just take this, delete the history, and again we can take a look in the UVs, and now we've got this for our 0 to 1 space. And if we right click on here and say faces, and if we double click this, there's the back. So I might want to lay this out a little bit different. I might want to have the front here, and then this is the back, and then this is the left arm, and then the right arm, like this. So whatever can help you maybe logically lay some of these things out might be good. I think I do want to still fix up just a few of these UVs right there, like that. And this overlaps just a little bit, so that's red. So I do want to fix that, because if they overlap, they're basically sharing pixels, and you can get some seams to show up that are not seams that you want to have. These are called your UV borders, and that's you'll usually have pixels that extend past here to make sure that there's no visible seams that show up whenever you bake information. Okay, so I'm deleting history, and then it's going to save this file, and that's everything that needs to be done for making the UVs on this. So for this next part, to explain to you what's going on with the texture, I just went into ZBrush and then added subdivision levels to the model that you saw in Maya, and it has the same UVs that we had before. And then I just made a quick poly paint version on this and put some decals that say F for front, L for left, B for back, and then R for right. And I gave a little bit of color information on the bottom and then the sleeves, and just add a little bit of design on there so we can tell what's going on with this. So inside of ZBrush, after you have poly paint, you can go to the UV map area, and if I want a 4096 by 4096 map, I can click on that as long as it's got UVs, and go to texture, and I can go to create, and I can say new from poly paint, and that will make a texture based off of this. The weird thing about ZBrush is that their UVs are flipped vertically, so I can do this. I can take this and say clone texture, and it'll make a texture. If I go to the texture area, so this exists up within through here, I can go to texture and I can dock this off to the left like that. Within there, they've got a flip vertical, so I was able to flip the texture, and then I can export that texture out from ZBrush, and so I'll do that, and I'll put that in Maya, and I'll show you what this looks like inside of Maya. Before I hop on over to Maya, though, I do want to tell you that it is possible to go to the plugins area. So you go to Z plugins and through here, and then they've got a UV master area, and I can take this and dock it over here to the left by doing that. And if I go to UV master, they do have a flatten. I'm not sure if this is going to work because I have subdivision levels on it, but I'll just click it anyways. No. Okay. So I can work on a clone, and if I do that, it'll do the lowest division of this, and I can do a flatten, and it'll lay out the UVs flatten like this. Okay. So what I'm going to do is unflatten this, and I'm not sure if the UVs are exactly correct what it's showing within through here, but I'm going to unflatten that. But what I was able to do was flatten this, and I was able to export this out as a model, as an FBX, and then I was able to do a morph target inside of ZBrush, or I'm sorry, in Maya, between this model and the old model that's split apart. And I'll show you the animation part in just a second when we hop over to Maya. So again, I'm going to unflatten. I just want to explain to you that that was going on over here inside of ZBrush to generate the next part. So just go ahead and go to texture and then save that out, and I'll show you what this looks like inside of Maya. Okay, here we are inside of Maya, and then I'm just going to take the material that's on here. It says the default Lambert, hit Control A to bring up the attribute editor for this, and I just deleted history, Alt Shift D. But here's the Lambert, and I can go to the color area and I can map this, and I can go to File, and then I can go ahead and navigate to where my file sits. Okay, so I have that loaded within through there, and so now that should just be the texture. If you want, I can steal the name from this right here at the end of the file name, copy it, and I'll just paste it right here like this and hit enter. And then to see the texture on here, I'll tap 6 and I should be able to see the texture on this now in this format. Okay, like I was saying, I had a split version that I exported out, and I had our original version that was all together like this. Now, in order to get this animation to work, what I needed to do was I had the imported version from ZBrush that was flattened out, and I did a transfer. There's a way in Maya that you can go under modeling and you can go to mesh and you can do transfer attributes, and I could transfer the vertex position based off of UVs because they shared the same UVs. Now when I was able to do this is a little more advanced, so I know there's some people that would be on more the advanced side that might want to understand what was going on here. So I transferred the vertex position and I used a sample space of UV like that. And then I had two models. I had the first model that's flattened out, and then I had the version that transferred the shape by what we just looked at, and it was putting it into this position here. And so I'll push this back over to 0. That's the original. I'll hide it, Control H, like this. And then with those two different versions selected, the flattened version and then this whole version, I was able to go under Deform and then go to Blend Shape and then do a blend shape between the two. So now that this we have this animated version on here. So now I can just go over here to the channel box and do this T-shirt flat and then middle mouse drag, and you can see we can animate this thing going from the 3D object to it being split apart and then being laid out flat. And so I hope this little demonstration helps you to understand how we can take the 3D object that we have and then lay it out flat, and how we build our textures. And this is what's going on behind the scenes for everything whenever we go to build our textures on things. So hopefully that helps you get your mind wrapped around what's really going on.